Hey there, friends. It's Pastor Jason here. Glad you can join me for another daily devotional. Today, we're going to be in Genesis 37, and we're going to look at maybe another tool that might be helpful as you gain a better picture of what happened in early Israel history. Today, we're going to start with Jacob and his sons and the story of Joseph. Remember, Jacob has just been renamed Israel by the Lord. So sometimes you're going to get the name Jacob, sometimes you'll get the name Israel. And I have a graphic here. I'll try to put it up right here. And as you can see, we've got Jacob and his wives and his wives' slaves that bore him children. And you'll see the numbers, that's the order of their birth. And we see like a family tree to kind of help you gain a mental grasp of, if you've been in church for a while, maybe you've never really understood the relationship of all these sons, or maybe, you're just new to this and you're learning about these 12 sons for the first time. We see who their descendants are, okay? So right around 1300 BC, you see that the son of Levi is, you'll see, those are going to be the Levites. Those are going to be the priests later on. But first comes Moses and Aaron, who are brothers. And then from Judah, that is from Leah, the elder sister, you get King David eventually, and then eventually Jesus. But then also Rachel. Okay, Rachel was the one that Jacob originally loved, originally wanted, winds up having to wait later to marry her. She bears Joseph late in life, and then Benjamin even later. And this is the Joseph we're going to be reading about today. And Benjamin is the youngest son. We're going to see what happens there with Benjamin in a couple of chapters. But from him, King Saul, from Benjamin, you'll get King Saul later on. We'll get to him eventually, who wants to try to kill David, right? And David winds up becoming king over Saul. So, with that, hopefully that's a help. Family trees tend to help. So, if you Google biblical family trees and stuff like that, it can be helpful at times. And I think this is one of those moments when you've got so many sons involved. Reuben's going to feature here in chapter 37. Remember, he's the firstborn, and yet he's had a little bit of trouble. So we're going to see him trying to up his game a little bit today. Let us take a look at chapter 37. Now, this is the story of Joseph, and many of us of a certain age, if you've been in church for a while, you've got maybe a cartoon stuck in your head about this story. Do yourself a favor. Try to block it out and picture the humanity of the people involved. What's going on? People aren't just going to relent and go into pits and be sold into slavery without some kind of uproar. So try to picture yourself in that place. Maybe you're a 13th kid, an imaginary 13th kid. Picture yourself there and see what happens. Here we go, chapter 37, verse 1. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. These are the family records of Jacob. At 17 years of age, Joseph tended sheep with his brothers. The young man was working with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than his other sons, because Joseph was a son born to him in his old age, and he made a robe of many colors for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not bring themselves to speak peaceably to him. Then Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. They were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly my sheaf stood up, and your sheaves gathered round it and bowed down to my sheaf. Are you really going to reign over us? His brothers asked him. Are you really going to rule us? So they hated him even more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream and told it to his brothers. Look, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. He told his fathers and his brothers, but his father rebuked him. What kind of dream is this that you've had? He said. Are your mother and brothers and I going to come and bow down to the ground before you? Don't forget, Rachel died in childbirth when she was giving birth to Benjamin. Okay, so that's why he only talks about his one mother. Verse 11, his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. His brothers had gone to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, your brothers, are pasturing the flocks at Shechem. Get ready, I'm sending you to them. I'm ready, Joseph replied. Then Israel said to him, go and see your brothers and the flocks, how your brothers and the flocks are doing, and bring word back to me. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. A man found him there. I'm looking for my brothers, Joseph said. Can you tell me where they are pasturing their flocks? They moved on from here, the man said. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. So Joseph set out after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. They said to one another, here comes that dreamer. Come on, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. We can say that a vicious animal ate him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. When Reuben heard this, he tried to save him from them. He said, let's not take his life. Reuben said to them, don't shed blood. Throw him into this pit in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him, intending to rescue him from their hands and return him to his father. When Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped off his robe, the robe of many colors that he had on. Then they took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat a meal. They looked up, and there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying aromatic gum, balsam, and resin, going down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, what do we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh. And they agreed. When Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, the boy is gone. What am I going to do? So they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a young goat, and dipped the robe in its blood. They sent the robe of many colors to his father and said, we found this. Examine it. Is it your son's robe or not? His father recognized it. It is my son's robe, he said. A vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his waist, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, he said, I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning. And his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. So, chapter 37, okay, the story of Joseph. The story's going to go on for a couple of chapters. it's amazing to me that the Lord will use this, right? The Lord is going to be faithful even in this years later for us when we think about the Lord's calling on our life. Sort of like when Joseph was receiving a calling from the Lord through the dreams. It doesn't mean that things are going to go easy for us. Sometimes things are going to be downright painful and difficult and hard to grasp and understand. Think of Joseph in this moment, right? He has these dreams from the Lord, and then his own brothers treat him like this. His own brothers kill him. His own brothers want to kill him. His own brothers sell him into slavery. Like, there'd be all sorts of reason, humanly speaking, there'd be all sorts of reason for Joseph to doubt the Lord's call on his life, to doubt these dreams that he has. And yet we're going to find out it doesn't work out that way. Joseph is going to continue to receive dreams from the Lord, and he's going to continue to be the mouthpiece of God. And he's going to continue serving the Lord as best he can. And it's all going to come out well for him, even with his brothers and his father. How do you need to hold on to what the Lord has told you? I pray that you could be a blessing to someone. Be blessed by the Lord. Hold on to what he has given you and be faithful with it. Be found faithful and fruitful. Fulfill what the Lord has given you. Be blessed, be a blessing, and we will see you tomorrow in Genesis 38. Have a great day.